Okay, welcome to Inside the Challenge. Today I have with me Anne-Marie Armstrong from Aamp Studio. Anne-Marie was recently on the podcast, but also now I've invited her to participate in Inside the Challenge. So Anne-Marie, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it again.
Yeah, well, it's my pleasure. I'm gonna have you on again. Obviously, we want to talk about some other topics. But so for
Great.
today, the topic that we're going to discuss is and the challenge is how do you live inside of a building that's about to receive a two-story addition above you while you live there? Yeah, challenges. So, Anne Marie, the floor is yours, or the screen is yours, I should say.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks for having me. It's great to share these stories and experiences with others. So, this project in our office, we call it the Jones Multi-Unit.
Sure.
Um, and my husband and I own the building as well. This is where our offices both are, but we also have residential kind of spaces in the building as in addition to these commercial spaces. So we are currently building a two-story addition on top of this building for our family to live in. But because of, financial constraints and all of that, we wanted to also live in the building while it is in construction in the basement. And so with that came several challenges. So, I mean, both emotionally and architecturally.
Yep.
So, all to say is, I'll be speaking about the architectural challenges today. Um,
We'll leave the
yes,
emotions aside.
and just show you one of the ways in which we sort of try to accommodate, a family and also another tenant
Yeah.
living in this space. So I'll share my screen
Yeah.
and go from there. So can you see my screen?
Can,
So I
yes.
can. Okay, perfect. So I just wanted to give you and everyone else an opportunity to see what the building
Yeah.
was before. And we're in the process of, uh, restoring the original building. It was built in the 1950s as doctors' offices, and so it was purpose built for that reason. And when we purchased the building, it had been converted under the cover of night to residential spaces, but really still held the story of the dentist's offices and spaces in it. It wasn't really truly converted. So part of our effort here has been to both bring everything up to code,
Yeah.
but also really, we love the building and the character of it. So I'll share a couple slides next.
Sure.
So these are the original drawings. The project was designed by Design Incorporated, who we haven't been able to really track down. There's a larger story to this project that I won't get into, but it's a dear to our heart. The building is dear to our heart. But there's like great terrazzo floor and this sort of existing yellow glazed brick, which we think came from Toronto Brickworks. But you can also see the drawings and like the sort of details provided that were part of the original drawing set. And so the building is brick on block, CMU block, and it's a really solid structure. What we found during the process of kind of exploration is that the walls are not reinforced. And so for us to add a two-story addition, which is what we wanted to do, we would have to reinforce the walls
Right.
in certain locations. So, you know, we really wanted to be able to retain all of these wonderful features on the interior, but also live in this space. So, in terms of the scope, just so that you can understand the kind of how much we're adding, we were adding a full, like covering the footprint, a new addition that's the full footprint, plus a stair that goes up to a kind of upper level with a roof deck. So it's a partial addition on the third floor, and then there's also a garage adjacent to it, but that didn't really impact the existing building. So there's an access drawing of the build of the project itself.
Yeah.
Here you can see where my cursor is. That's the existing building.
Yep.
The addition above is sort of here with that roof deck and then into there. So it's a significant add or
Yes.
addition to a project. Um, Sections again, this is the new and that's the old.
Yep.
So you can kind of see what its relationship is. So I'll start by just showing you this slide, but there was a lot of discussion about there's certain strategies that we've used to not impact the existing building or to minimally impact. And our structural engineers, Moses, were really wonderful to collaborate with. They kind of used to, they would talk about the building as if it's bridging over the existing so that we could minimize the number of columns that have to go into the center of the building or impact layouts. So strategically, there were only 3 columns that were coming through walls and certain areas where we could hide them within closets or millwork
Okay.
to allow for this building, this addition to bridge over. However, the bridging part of it became complicated because there were roughly 10 hold down area, like reinforcement areas that would have to be added along the perimeter of the building. So you're starting, this is a kind of a sketch that we worked with Moses on to define and identify where those continuous sort of reinforcement areas could be so that when the framing of the addition came above, it could be held down and tied down to the structure and loads could be carried through
Yep.
to the foundation. So the hold down thing was an interesting one because I think when Moses had initially designed it, there had been an assumption that on the inside of the building there wouldn't be anybody in there, and that we could, open up walls, pour or form, pull rebar down through, and then form new columns. But however, we didn't want to touch the drywall. We didn't want to touch the finishes. We were going to live in this building. So that's where the challenge came, the big challenge. And ultimately, with our contractor at the time, and both myself and my husband also has construction experience, we all kind of put our heads together. And this sort of idea came up, which sounded sort of like hyper creative and maybe a shot in the dark. But the thought was, and you saw some of the images here before, the thought was, can you take a drill bit and actually go top down, a strategy that we called top down strategy, where from the roof you core through the existing CMU cells and create a space so that you can drop rebar
Yes.
through the walls and sort of essentially try to pour concrete through and form at the base of the in the basement where we had to actually take up a lot of we were living in the middle floor at the time, so the basement we had to rip up anyway for extensive plumbing changes that would allow for for 4 units to be in the building by
Yep.
code. So we had to fully renovate the basement anyway, so we could form those columns in the basement. So you can see what we started with was just kind of discovery and looking at, like, is this feasible? And the drill bit and extensions would have to be significant to get down right through. So this is a really ambitious idea that, working with Moses and the contractor, we all sort of said, is this possible? And tried to work through it. And I really appreciated everyone's sort of desire to make something work and to kind of think outside of traditional ways of approaching this, to kind of get to a point that we could achieve both the addition, the reinforcement, and live in the building.
Right.
So you can see some of the process, like the rebar, is, over 20 feet, 30 feet or so. Well, here you are with your, 23 feet or so. You've got,
It's a nice
you've
flagpole.
got, yeah, exactly. So you can see it's working. We're getting it through.
Yeah.
It's a very time consuming process. So, 10 locations, and hearing a drill like painstakingly go through is a kind of an interesting experience when you're residing in the building. We really worked with a great team on this, and we're able to make it work with Moses's oversight as well. So there's quite a bit of coordination to ensure that each of those areas, all the rebar was adequately being pulled through, and everyone was sort of happy with the results. And so we would take a lot of documentation of this to kind of identify and show that everything was done correctly. So now we're in the basement. So you can see in the basement, we were able to kind of take away the finishes because we were redoing all the plumbing. So all the floors were ripped out down there.
Right.
And really, that's where we could identify and confirm that the rebar had all gone all the way through. Um, and so you're seeing that looking back up from the basement, you're looking at the existing
How
first
tight it
floor
is.
there.
Joist.
Yeah. So, so you're seeing the results. And then here's one of the contractors' team pulling. This was actually after there was some form work that was put against this wall as the concrete was being pulled down. But so you're seeing the results of these columns that essentially get formed
Yes.
around the perimeter. So that's essentially the story. You know, it started with this idea of what if, and ended up being something that everyone was sort of open to pursuing, and really allowed us to continue to live in the building with our tenants as well. And yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
it
sort of
saves the
story.
displacement of the tenant, which is in itself
Mm-hmm.
something that you could avoid in like a
Yes.
tribunal potentially, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. And
And
yeah,
then
the
it's
tenants were super understanding too. You know, there's
right.
noise and things, but yeah.
And then for you, it saves you what it could save you like over 50,000 plus dollars
Yes.
rent,
Significantly, yeah.
right?
And because we've been working on this project for a few years now. I mean, it's been a few years, you know, since my daughter was born actually. So it's been really important and helpful for us to be able to live here because that savings is significant.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
considerably
yeah,
so. Anne Marie, thank
yeah.
you. Thank you for taking time.
Yeah,
It's such an
yeah.
interesting, creative method of trying to find a solution to a
Yes.
substantial problem.
Yep, yep, that's a definite one. And I think it's just great to kind of think that, you know, we can try different things,
Yes.
and that if everyone's on board for it, that we can find solutions. And I appreciate that creativity and
Yeah,
collaboration. So
I'm with you.
yeah,
Thanks for
yeah,
sharing.
yeah. Great. Thank you.